Hello everyone, I'm Susan Lee MacDonald and welcome back to my show, The Interview. These are the beautiful gardens in Gwacheon at the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. And I'm here to meet a very special guest, world-renowned French contemporary artist Xavier Veilhan. He has held the honor of having a solo exhibition at the Palace of Versailles after Jeff Koons, and he has held many different exhibitions throughout the most important museums of the world. He will be exhibiting a first solo exhibition in Asia, here in Korea, and I'm looking forward to finding out all about his career and his incredible works. So join me to meet Xavier Veilhan.
You don't have to focus on each piece, but it's more the combination of everything, like in a garden, that makes the experience interesting. Actually, art is not a process that you're doing on your own. To me, it's mostly based on the discussion, like what we have now. Every object is both figurative and abstract. It's just a matter of how the viewer is looking at it.
Well, Xavier, I'd like to welcome you back to Korea, and thank you so much for being on my show, The Interview.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. This is not your first time to Korea. You've been here a number of times. I'm wondering what your impression of coming back this time is.
Well, the first time I came was in '95, so the country was very different. And so it's a country that changes each time I'm coming, even if there's only a short period of time between two trips. It's changing very fast, and people are fast here, which is nice.
I'm curious what it's like for you to have your artworks displayed here and the impression that you have of what Koreans expect of you.
People are very enthusiastic most of the time and fast, and everything is going around the clock. So it's nice because I'm more of a speedy person. I like when things are fast. And also this enthusiasm is directly linked to my work. So I think I try to carry a certain spirit of modernity that Korean people experience maybe better than French, because they have a strong history, but the last 10, 20, 30 years have been a lot of change, maybe more changes than in other countries.
Sure.
So it brings in a kind of dynamic feeling.
And now that you've been to Korea a number of times, I'm curious, how are you feeling about having your works displayed in some of the biggest, most kind of renowned museums here in Korea? Like, we're here at the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art, as you know, and how do you feel about that?
It's great. It's also based on a kind of a mystery, because when you're doing art, you always try to, so myself, I always try to anticipate what reaction will be for the viewer, not only the piece for itself, but what it involves in terms of memory for the viewer.
So Le Cheval is displayed here in front of everyone to see, and all the people coming to the museum will definitely see your artwork. And I'd love to go and have a personal tour by the artist himself. Would that be okay with you?
My pleasure. Yeah.
Wonderful. Great. So shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, so this is Le Cheval, yes?
Yeah, it's a very simple piece, but it's the process of doing it is quite special because you know sometimes I'm using 3D scanning to catch the figure, but the figure has to stay still, completely still with this technique. So I couldn't use it in this case because no horse will stay completely still for long enough. So I built a small sculpture, very traditionally made of plaster, like that size. This is metal.
Metal,
Yeah, and it's folded metal and welded metal. And
So
the tricky part is
each of those pieces are welded together then?
not all, but for example, this might be one piece, and
I
then
see.
it's welded here. So the tricky part is to have this very homogenic aspect, so that you don't see the difference between the welded and the bent part.
Well, I know that you've also got an exhibition here in Korea at the 313
Yes.
exhibition, your first solo exhibition here in Asia, and you've decided to do this here in Korea. So I'd love to be able to continue and have you show me around there,
Sure,
and we can
sure,
do
my
our
pleasure.
interview there too. So we're finally in front of the 313 gallery, and I see that there's a really lovely statue here. Is this yours?
Yes,
Yes.
it's part of the show, but it's the only piece outside. I thought it was interesting to use the situation of the gallery at the corner of the center of Seoul, and also to have a kind of interaction with the public passing by, not only the visitors of the gallery.
It's very curious because, of course, like half the body is seen, and then we have the kind of rectangles and the other squares. Is there a particular reason why you decided to do that?
Well, it's I love to play with the idea of the plinth and the pedestal, the combination of very structured part that are matching the organic body. It's more of a game with a constructed structure and geometrical structure and non-geometrical.
I imagine that just by being here on the corner that you're going to be attracting a lot more attention for people to come into the gallery. And well, speaking of the gallery, maybe we could head inside and
please.
check out what you've got inside. That's so lovely. Wow.
We should start upstairs maybe.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Lovely.
Anina. So it's actually I don't have much to say on this because it's such a classical kind of shape. Here the base is again treated like it could be a minimal sculpture for itself.
Yes. One thing that I really love about these kinds of sculptures is that it's not just something that you see from the front and it's not two-dimensional, but that you get to actually experience the art as you can walk around it.
Yeah, and actually I'm interested in the mechanical part of the body, for example, the way that it's pushing on one hand, and so it twists the whole body, and it's a suspension that is makes the whole movement of the back that is diagonal.
And back here I see that we have another lovely half lady.
Half lady, yeah.
And it's so unique. I love this idea of the slices. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Slices, even if it's a bit strange for a pretty lady, but the idea is also that when you see something, for example, a body is one single object, but object or element, but it's also a combination of atoms, of small parts.
What material is this?
That's aluminium, and it's water jet coated.
Water jet cut.
Yeah, so it's water that is cutting so it makes this kind of smooth.
Oh yes, I see the grooves.
Yeah, exactly. So it's directly from the water jet, so it has no finishing.
Wow, this is quite nice. What is this made of?
No, so that's the lightest material possible. So it's polyester resin.
Polyester resin. I'm so tempted to touch it, but
Well, you can. It's very soft.
Ooh, it is very soft.
Yeah.
On some level, this is just so lovely, and it also reminds me of the mobiles that are in the children's rooms above the babies' cribs. But
it's also related to this idea that things are always moving, like cosmically. We are in a constant changing world, expanding world, and but it's a very natural thing.
Well, great. Well, I look forward to going downstairs and starting our interview and finding out more about the one and only Xavier. So shall we go downstairs?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, fantastic. So we're finally sitting down for the main part of the interview, and I'm really excited to start asking you all kinds of questions about your career and your professional life, personal life. But I hear that we're sitting on some very unique design piece chairs. Is that right?
Yeah, actually it's funny because it used to be very common and now it's turning more rare and more valuable also. But it was those type of chairs were used in some schools in France, for example, in the 50s.
I really like the kind of wood, and it's just very kind of simple, like very kind of minimal. Well, if this is a design piece, is it really valuable, or can you just see this still everywhere in France?
No, it turns to be really crazy on those design pieces. I'm into design too, but I'm more collecting contemporary design, but this is, I don't know exactly the price, but it's very valuable.
Yeah, like around how much would you say?
Like about $10,000.
$10,000, oh my gosh, this is a very valuable chair. This is nice. You know, I wouldn't have guessed it for that much, but now I feel much more special sitting here. Well, sitting on these lovely design pieces and being here in the gallery that's showcasing your solo exhibition, I feel that there's a really special energy with some of the work that you create, and I'm curious why you decided to do your first exhibition in Asia here in Korea. Is there a special reason why?
Well, I always had a very good feedback with people in Korea, and when I first came for the first Guangzhou Biennale in '95, I already felt this kind of great energy and enthusiasm, and no, I think it developed very fast, and I don't know, there is you're doing small project and you have more and more feedback on that, so it leads you to a bigger project. And I also have commission works here in Korea, and people asking me to make project for the public spaces, which I think is also very interesting. So it's a little bit also in Asia, generally speaking, in Japan, and a little bit in China. I just had a piece installed in Shanghai, but it's more in Korea.
Well, you know, as you know, Koreans are really head over heels for all kinds of public space art, and to see yours at the museum that we were just visiting, and to hear that there might be some more, it's pretty exciting. What do you think is the appeal of having kind of a public space art piece as opposed to something that a collector would have in his or her home or office?
Well, it's allow more people to share the same thing, and probably it's a more easygoing relationship with the art. And I like people being able to look at the art like it could be like encounter or promenade in a garden, for example, or in a forest or in a mountain. So you don't look at everything that is around you, but you feel the environment and you interact with it. So for me, an exhibition could be almost like as if pieces would be trees or visual events, like, I don't know, a sea or a lake or whatever, and you just walk around, and so it's not like you don't have to focus on each piece, but it's more the combination of everything, like in a garden, that makes the experience interesting.
Now, this gallery is hosting your bodies exhibition, and you've got bodies and nudes, lovely nudes. Can you tell me a little bit about what the concept is here?
Yes, you know, in fine art you have a tradition, and you have a more or less elaborate relationship to beauty that could be like in poetry or music, but there is also a relationship that everybody knows to beauty, that is, who has a pretty face, who is beautiful, what is a beautiful body. So everybody knows about that. You don't have to be aware of a history or art history. So it's interesting to link these two different levels of beauty, the one from the fine arts and the one from an average street culture or culture in general. So it's interesting to link it to this average level of culture that everybody knows.
Sure, sure. Now, here we have a lot of three-dimensional objects, but we also have the two-dimensional object there. Why the contrast in this show?
Well, it's I think an image is two-dimensional, so it's something that is more connected to, I would say, a projected image, like a dream or like a thought. When a three-dimensional object actually exists in your space, so it's you sharing the same space. So the field I like to explore is mostly between a three-dimensional object, an actual three-dimensional object, and a more mental thing that is more linked to an image. So actually this piece, the sculpture has been shot, and I've done a photograph of that.
Yes.
And this is a portrait of it. So it's a representation of a representation, but it's a two-dimensional representation of a 3D one.
Very interesting. Wow.
And but this is a little bit like articulate and complex, but it's a very easy piece also, because what I'm interested in is different level of representation, and how it can appear quite abstract to some people when it's a realistic image. I don't know if you can see the portrait in it, but some people don't see it, some people do.
I think I can see it now that you say that it's an image of the image, but when I saw it earlier, it just looked like a very nice kind of structural kind of piece. Yeah.
That's, so, you know, most of the time you will split art into abstract and realistic or figurative art, when in fact it's only a matter of distance and angle. So It's like if you see something like, I don't know, a hand will be a hand from that distance, but if you get an image from a microscope,
Yes.
it's still a hand that you're looking at, but nothing reveals what it is, so it turns to be abstract.
Right.
So just to say that every object is both figurative and abstract. It's just a matter of how the viewer is looking at it.
Now, I like your explanation about the differences in perspective for the same object, and it's kind of a commentary on life in some ways, right? Like you can look at any kind of situation or a person, and depending on your perspective, you can like it or not like it, or have very different opinions. Are you also making a commentary on needing to know and needing to kind of accept all different kinds of perspectives?
Yes, but I think it's an interesting point, but what I'm more interested in is maybe that to try to reach a common understanding on object. And I think, for example, my relation to art in the history, what I'm interested in is when you look at the 15th century painting, for example, you look at something you definitely don't understand. You don't understand why, who is represented, and who asked the artist to make the painting, and what was the goal of the painting, for example. But you feel something still.
Sure.
Which is like maybe the track of something. And when it's good art, this trace is remaining and lasting. So what I try to do is to make people feel like when they're looking at some object, other people that will look at the same object will share something with them. I don't try to get inside my personality. I don't think it's very interesting actually, but I'm more interested in opening something like all the figures and the shows. They are figures of intimacy because they are naked, most of them, but they are also very open to the exterior, and they are positive figures, and they are strong women or men, but strong.
It's not really sexualized, but it's just a very natural, kind of organic feeling. Is that what you were striving for?
I'm interested in the sensuality, because often with art you will split, like I said before, you could split figurative and non-figurative abstract, but you will also split conceptual and formal, for example. In sensuality, it's impossible to split it. So everybody understands that it's both your brain and your body that is feeling things. So I think it's a level of relationship with art that I would love to have, which is more like if you're going to a club and listening to a good sound and dance, or you have an experience that is both physical and mental. So I would love to reach the same level of relationship with the viewer with visual art.
Now, I'm sure that as an artist who's created a lot of different art over the years, creating this exhibition wasn't a small task. How long did it take for you to prepare the ideas to the completion of a lot of this artwork here?
It's been probably over a year. But this show is a little bit special because almost all of the pieces involve different techniques. So we had a lot of different foundry and different carpenters, and just to pick up the wood to make this solid wood piece, for example, was already. So it's a lot of people involved. It's a little bit like doing a short movie or something like that. So we have a team of people that is involved. Not only the team at the studio, but also people, small companies, people that we love to work with.
This is the 313 Art Project in front of Tosan Park. one of the hottest fashion and art districts in Korea. Here, Xavier Veilhan, a world-renowned French contemporary artist, was holding his first solo exhibition in Korea under the title Bodies. A total of 12 works were on display, including the new nude figures and mobiles of the Architect series, and explanations were provided through Art Talk.
It's like 50 kilos each. So it's interesting for me to have different scale and different level of attention of the viewer. So those are more very small pieces, like, I don't know if you know those Giacometti tiny figures. Made of oak wood, and it's been smoothened and sanded, and it's on a plate made of carbon. Kilos.
20kg이나.
And it's polished, hand polished. I'm interested in the idea of the reverse figure and the balance of it and the weight.
There was also a question and answer session in store for the visitors.
영감을 받으셔서 작업하셨을 거 아니면 어떤 거에서 저 모델을 쓰셨는지.
Friend of mine, she's a kind of multimedia artist. Sometimes I will look for a model, but most of the time I like already to know the person and she knows how.
The acclaimed artist spent an hour speaking with the visitors, providing an insight into art and sharing his views.
기회가 좋게 아트 토크까지 같이 하게 되면서 평소에는 잘 모르고 있었던 작가인데 그러니까 설명도 듣고 하다 보니까 조형적인 것을 이렇게 좀 미니멀리틱하게 표현하신 게 굉장히 저의 성향이랑도 맞는 것 같고
오늘 와보니까 그 건축가의 르꼬르비지에를 이제 모델로 한 그 작업 같은 경우에는 몸체는 미니멀한데 이제 얼굴과 이제 신발 같은 부분 디테일한 건 이제 조각상의 느낌을 가지고 있어요. 그래서 지금까지 작업했던 거에 어떤 접점이 되는 것 같아요. 그래서 앞으로의 작업들이 또 어떻게 진행이 될지도 되게 궁금하고 팬으로서 또 응원을 하고 싶고 그렇습니다.
For the past 3 years, Veilhan poured his heart and soul into the works presented at the Bodies exhibition. And through them, you will get a glimpse into his next journey as an artist.
as a child, were you influenced by any particular type of teacher or parent to pursue art, or was this something that was something that you just did despite or in spite of kind of people being against you going into art?
No, I think my parents were probably an influence on me because I come from a large family, and I have 5 sisters.
5 sisters. Yeah. Wow. And the only son?
Yeah. And
the youngest?
No, I was in the middle, so the third one. And so it was always a little bit like messy at my place, and but a lot of traffic and people passing by and music, and so a lot of action. So probably I've been also influenced by this ambience and the fact that my father, not professionally, but he was always building things made of wood. And for example, during the year we were doing, in the winter we were building small sailboats that we were using during the summer, and then I worked a lot just as a job to make money for advertising, and then I made backdrop for fashion shows and things like that, and I learned a lot. So it was like both regular education and a very practical thing, like you have 2 days to make something out of money and with a few ideas, and so it was a very good practice.
You know, it sounds like you've had kind of a wide range of experience prior to really kind of honing in and just doing your work as a full-time artist. And do you think that it's a very good thing for other artists to also kind of experience a wide range of other kinds of work somehow related to art as they choose to do their art?
Yes, I think definitely one thing to do is to travel, and then probably to work with another artist, because you experience many things. Maybe work in a gallery or helping a collector installing his work, or anything related to the art world, because you can look around and feel and understand more. And I think anything that you can share the experience of living art is interesting.
You know, now you are an extremely successful artist, but I imagine that when you were taking on different jobs like that it might not have always been easy to pursue art or to work. Did you ever go through what is cliche to say is the starving artist phase when you first decided to really pursue art and make this your career?
So I wasn't starving, but almost, because I remember clearly not having the means to buy the materials and stuff to make my work, so which was very frustrating. But I was always, in a way, confident that it will work at some point, because art is a statement, is a conviction. You don't need to study anything. It's better if you have certain knowledge, but there is no examination, even at the Beaux-Arts school, saying, okay, no, you're an artist. It's a statement that you're doing for your own, of your own, I mean, and then, okay, one day you pretending that you're an artist, and then problems are starting, but but it's more a position that you take toward the society than a diploma.
또 프랑스 미술계에서 가장 밀어주고 사랑하는 작가가 자비에가 아닐까 생각을 해요. 그 예로 베르사유 궁전에서 큰 전시가 있었는데요. 그 전시를 정말 많은 사람들이 찾아보고 또 지금까지도 인터넷 등에서 계속 검색이 되고 이야기되는 것을 알 수가 있거든요. 그런 점에서 볼 때 자비에는 아마 앞으로 한 30년, 50년 계속 회자되지 않을까 생각을 합니다.
featured recently at the Palace of Versailles with a solo exhibition, which, from my understanding, is a very rare thing for an artist to have, the privilege of exhibiting their things there. And I'm curious, first, how were you selected, and what did it feel like to have your works displayed at such an historic place?
Mm-hmm. Well, when they first invited me, I couldn't really believe it, because actually they had, before doing this solo exhibition program at Versailles, they had a small program that they invite me for, and I had always, my schedule didn't allow me to take part to this small, short program. Mm-hmm. So when they established this big program, I was lucky enough to be chosen by the curator, Laurent Lebon, who is now the director of the Pompidou in Metz. Mm-hmm. So there is another Pompidou. And so he told me that he had invited Jeff Koons as the first, and yes, I could be the second one. And then I started to realize that it will be quite a big deal. But the most impressive thing was I realized after a while that the idea of the show wasn't it wasn't only an actual show, it was also to show in a place that everybody has a fantasy for.
Yes.
Because even if you go to China, and Chinese people that never went to Versailles, they have a certain idea or an image, or they figure something about this. It's like, I don't know, the White House, sure, or some
it's
important...
a symbol of the French monarchy, the luxuriousness and the prestige, also some of the tragedies too, but there's such incredible artwork just hanging within the bedrooms there, and to have your work.
Well, wow. Actually it's a good point, because my approach was never to try to compete with that, but more to catch the essence of it and to try to get along with it.
Do you know what the selection criteria was?
Probably certain interest for doing things for a broad audience. And for example, I don't think a radical conceptual artist will fit in this environment. And also a certain respect for an idea of history.
Yes.
So for example, I designed the whole show, which include extremely large pieces, so that you were always able to visit the place and, for example, take a photograph of wherever you wanted to look at without having the piece interfering. So I didn't want to occupy the space. I wanted to celebrate the space.
And also kind of blend in as if the art piece actually belonged there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what types of pieces, maybe specifically, did you have for that exhibition?
Well, it was really very diverse, because I had a few pieces inside the castle, and which were already quite big, but the major pieces were outside in terms of size. And for example, I had a huge fountain. It's interesting because Louis XIV had people, engineers, working on doing a fountain as large as they could, but they were only like 25 meters high at the time. Actually, it's funny, because when the king was walking through the garden of Versailles, they had a system with signals to stop the fountain where in the place that he left, and to start another fountain, because they didn't have enough pressure to have everything at once. So I made a very large fountain that was 100 meters high, but that really looked
100 meters high?
Yeah, a little bit like the one in Geneva.
Wow.
I don't know if you know this huge fountain on the lake. And it was actually beautiful, because the wind was kind of wiping it, and so it was very nice visually, but people always thought that it was always here, which was for me exactly what I wanted to attend.
You know, I'm sure that you cherish all of the art that you've made, but particularly at Versailles for that exhibition, was there any one piece that you had a particular affinity for over everything else?
I think it's La Lune, the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It was a trick, a visual trick
Mm-hmm.
that we made that was visible. It's called anamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
So it was from one point of view, which is called le point de vue du roi, the king's point of view, that is exactly located at the top of the stairs, in the middle. And from that exact point of view, you could see a round shape that was actually stretched on this huge stripe of green grass. So it's just the angle that gave the impression that it was a one volume. So. But you know, I'm more interested in. I love to look at some pieces of mine, but I'm more interested in other artist pieces because I'm a collector and I like not only ancient art but the new things that I just saw. Sometimes are more exciting for me.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that you are also a collector as well as being an artist. My guess would be that because you love art, you also appreciate others' efforts and their creativity. Is there a particular artist living or past that is a particular favorite of yours?
Yeah, there is a great British artist who turned to be a friend of mine, Julian Hoppy, that just had a show in the Corbuisier Gallery in Korea,
Yes.
in Seoul. And there is many painters that I love, and conceptual artists, and also this great artist, Carl Andre, who is a minimal artist. Most of them are still living. I'm interested in, you know, it's always more easy to cherish people that are dead, but I'm more interested in the lively process of art. Like, I think it's what makes that galleries are interested in their work. It's interacting with living artists and following the process of the work that goes up and down. And it's with artists I love, I'm always very anxious about what's the next thing. I try to go to exhibition as often as I can, and quite often in Paris or when I'm traveling. I'm also a collector myself, so sometimes I'm buying a few artworks from artist friends. So I try to keep in touch also with younger people. You don't know exactly where things are from, but you always catch something. It could be a way to display a work, or it could be, for example, we saw welded sculptures that are just a stack of welding material. I thought this is a very interesting idea.
If you weren't an artist, is there another kind of profession that you would highly consider?
Probably many professions, but anything that you have to interact with people. And also nature. It's a broad range, but there's not many professions still that are interacting with nature and people.
Well, you seem to like to communicate with people. Like you seem like a very social person, very friendly person. Like you're very engaging, and you want your artwork to be that way too.
Don't believe that. No, it's for example in the making is definitely something in the making of object. It's a paradoxical thing because everything is like goes under my name, but this show involves 100 people, from the shipper to the gallery, to the studio, to the foundry, to the painter, to the carpenter, etc. So
Long list of people.
yeah. So it's definitely, and it's not companies, it's people in companies sometimes, but it's interaction directly with people that you have to talk on the phone with, to explain things, to make drawings with, etc.
So let me ask you, would you consider, of these two things, which is more important? Is it the journey to making your art that's more important, or is it the end product that's more important?
Definitely the journey.
And why?
Well, it's, you know, like if you look at the Degas sculpture, or you can sometimes see sharply that it's an instant image of a process, but it could have been stopped earlier or later. And people always thinking that there is no other possibility for Mona Lisa than to be Mona Lisa. But there is billions of possibility to make anything else. And that's what makes it so valuable in a way, because it's what it is, and it's like a crystal or something that takes shape for some reason. It could have been many other shape, but this is this shape.
Last but not least, I'm going to ask you a philosophical question. What does art mean to you?
Well, I think it's a tool. It's a tool for understanding. So it's a way to bypassing lots of complexity, even if art is very complex itself, and reaching a certain understanding for your environment. So it's something I personally need to get along with the reality.
Xavier, it's been such a pleasure to have you on my show, and just to have one of arguably the world's best artists here in Korea, and I know that everyone's very excited to have you here. What are some of your future plans before we finish?
I'm heading to Japan, to Tokyo, to work on a project this weekend, and after that I'm traveling quite a lot right now. I'm going to West Coast, to California, Los Angeles over next week, and then so there's a lot of traveling because I'm working on projects in different places. And then to Mexico and to Moscow.
Wow.
So
that is a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I imagine that all the people who will be part of your new projects and also seeing your new projects come to fruition will be very excited. And I really look forward to not only seeing more people come to your exhibition here, but to have you visit us here in Korea again.
thank you so much.
Thank
for
you so
inviting
much.
me.
It's been so great.